Good morning, everyone. This is Daniel Chang. I'm a Senior Special Counsel in the EDGAR Business Office. We'll be presenting the EDGAR Next Kickoff Webinar number 3 today. I will be joined by my colleagues Loretta Finch and Margie Marrero, also Senior Special Counsels at EDGAR Business Office. The first portion of this recording is being re-recorded due to technical difficulties associated with the November 21st presentation. We'll start with a disclaimer. This presentation represents the views of the staff of the EDGAR Business Office. It is not a rule, regulation, or a statement of the Securities and Exchange Commission. The Commission has neither approved nor disapproved its content. As with all staff statements, this information has no legal force or effect. It does not alter or amend the applicable law, and it creates no or additional obligations on any person. So this is the last of 3 kickoff webinars that have been scheduled for EDGAR Next. Following the first 2 sessions, we reviewed the questions that were asked and tailored today's webinar to begin with answers to some of the most frequently asked questions. We hope this will establish a common understanding that will help provide context for the rest of the presentation. We are planning to host additional webinar sessions that will be announced at a later date, including a dedicated session related to compliance, as well as one related to Section 16 issuers. If you'd be interested in additional webinar sessions on specific topics, then please make your thoughts known during the Q&A session. To maximize our time together without distraction, the chat function will be turned on for the Q&A at the end of the webinar only, and not during the presentation webinar. We expect many of your questions will be answered during the presentation. Today we will cover the goals and purposes of EDGAR Next, provide a description of roles in EDGAR Next, and explain how EDGAR Next may apply to you. We will look at several common scenarios, including individuals such as Section 16 filers, filers and filing agents using third-party filing software, and filing agents. We will also discuss enrolling in EDGAR Next and provide a brief demo of enrollment and certain EDGAR Next functionality. We will conclude the webinar with Q&A. EDGAR Next is designed to improve EDGAR security, filer access, and account management processes. The EDGAR Next adopting release contains more detailed information, but we will do our best to provide a brief summary here. EDGAR Next will apply to all filers who submit filings in EDGAR. The filer may be an entity, such as a registrant or filing agent, or an individual, as in the case of a Section 16 filer. This means that all existing CIKs will be required to take action to enroll in EDGAR Next, whether those CIKs are associated with registrants, filing agents, or individuals making beneficial ownership filings. If an existing CIK is unable to enroll in EDGAR Next, then the CIK must reapply for EDGAR access by submitting Form ID. All new CIKs created on or after the initial compliance date of March 24th, 2025 will be automatically subject to EDGAR Next and will not need to subsequently enroll. There will be roles for each person authorized to act in EDGAR on behalf of a filer. Each of these persons will be required to obtain individual account credentials from login.gov, which will be used to identify them. For that reason, these credentials cannot be shared with others. These credentials, together with multi-factor authentication, will be used to verify their identity each time they log into EDGAR to take actions on behalf of filers. This will provide traceability and accountability for filings and other actions taken in EDGAR. In contrast, going to sec.gov to view filings on EDGAR will not require individual account credentials. With EDGAR Next, a new filer management dashboard will be used to manage filers' accounts. All individuals who will be taking actions in EDGAR on behalf of a filer must be authorized in the dashboard for that filer. Annual confirmation will be required for each filer's dashboard information. Finally, EDGAR Next will permit filers to use 15 optional EDGAR application programming interfaces, or APIs. These will allow machine-to-machine communication to EDGAR for submission and retrieval of information. Diagram 1 relates to authorization of individual roles and is taken directly from the EDGAR Next adopting release. It shows the relationship between the different roles and how those roles can be added. Let's go through each of these roles in more detail. Account administrators manage the filer's account on the dashboard, including adding and removing individuals, performing annual confirmation of dashboard information, delegating authority to file to other CIKs, and generating or creating custom CCCs. A filer can have a maximum of 20 account administrators. Users make submissions on behalf of the filer and can view the CCC. A filer can have a maximum of 500 users. Technical administrators generate filer API tokens and manage the filer's connection to APIs. A filer can have a maximum of 20 account administrators. This matches the limit for account administrators, which is intentional so that a filer who wishes their technical administrator to also be an account administrator can do so. Diagram 2 shows the key functions for each role and is also taken from the adopting release. An individual may have multiple roles at the same filer. An account administrator can perform all the functions of a user, plus also manage the filer's account. So it would be meaningless for an account administrator to also be a user for that filer. Thus, for a given filer, an account administrator cannot also be a user, but the account administrator can also be a technical administrator. In contrast, for a given filer, a technical administrator can be a user or an account administrator. There are no restrictions in terms of roles across filers, so an account administrator at one filer can be a user at another filer. Two roles which we would like to cover today are delegated administrators and delegated users. If a filer delegates to another CIK, the account administrators at the delegated entity CIK automatically become delegated administrators with regards to that delegation. Those delegated administrators can determine which of their users will be delegated users who can make filings with regards to that delegation. Diagram 3 shows how delegation works and is also taken from the adopting release. In this diagram, filer A is delegating to filer B, who may be a filing agent, law firm, broker-dealer, or some other entity who will be filing on filer A's behalf. The account administrators for filer B are delegated administrators with regards to that delegation. Those delegated administrators can file on behalf of filer A, and also authorize users from filer B to become delegated users who can file on behalf of filer A. No individual from filer A can see or take any action on filer B's dashboard, and no individual from filer B can see or take any action on filer A's dashboard. How will this affect me? Let's review some potential scenarios for Section 16 filers. Section 16 filers are subject to all the same requirements outlined in the EDGAR Next adopting release that apply to other filers. But we want to highlight a few suggestions for Section 16 filers in particular to consider. First, Section 16 filers may be associated with multiple boards of directors or multiple registrants. So it's important for the Section 16 filer to clearly communicate with all persons who have authority to file on EDGAR on their behalf. Second, the Section 16 filer should determine who will enroll them. They can choose anyone to enroll them, such as an employee of a registrant or a filing agent, or even handle the process themselves. There is no SEC documentation required when a Section 16 filer chooses someone to enroll them. The Section 16 filer does not need to obtain individual account credentials on login.gov if someone else enrolls them, and they do not need to provide a notarized power of attorney for enrollment. However, each filer can only enroll once. Third, the Section 16 filer should determine who they will authorize to manage their accounts as their account administrators. They can choose themselves or an individual employee of a filing agent, law firm, or registrant, or they can delegate to a CIK that belongs to a filing agent or registrant. Fourth, the Section 16 filer should ensure that the person who will perform enrollment has the Section 16 filer CIK, CCC, and passphrase, and the names and contact information for the Section 16 filer's desired account administrators. In some cases, the person performing enrollment may need to help the Section 16 filer reset their access codes. For example, if they do not know their CCC or passphrase. Instructions for resetting access codes are on the EDGAR Next page on sec.gov, and that and other helpful links appear in a later slide. Filing agents are subject to all the same requirements outlined in the EDGAR Next adopting release that apply to other filers. but we want to highlight a few suggestions for them to consider. First, we suggest that you communicate with your clients. Communicate what services you'll be providing regarding enrollment, and your individual employees serving as your clients' account administrators, users, and/or technical administrators. This is a business decision for you to make, and it's possible that you may or may not want to offer those services. If applicable, assist your clients with those services. Also consider and communicate whether you'll be requiring any new documentation or information, such as a new service agreement, API token, or enrollment credentials. Communicate whether you are willing to act as a delegated entity for your clients. In this scenario, your employees will be serving as delegated administrators and delegated users, and will be able to make filings on behalf of filers who choose to delegate to you. This is essentially a full service model, where clients will send you filings that your employees will file on your client's behalf, using your filer API token and your employees' user API tokens. Alternately, you may require filers who wish to submit a filing via a self-service model to include their own filer API token and their own user API token. In this scenario, filers will not need to delegate to you, since even if they may be using your filing software, you will not be acting on their behalf as a delegated entity. In addition, you should communicate whether your clients can submit filings by using your filer API token and API connections. As a general matter, the self-service model contemplates that your clients will be using your API connections, but it does not necessarily mean that you will be allowing your clients to use your filer API tokens. We will now look at things from the perspective of filers and filing agents using third-party filing software. First, you should communicate with the provider of that filing software. Ask what services the provider will be providing regarding enrollment and with regards to their individual employees serving as your account administrators, users, and/or technical administrators. This is a business decision the provider will make, and it's possible that not all providers may want to offer these services. Consider whether you want to use a software provider for those services. Ask whether you will need to provide any new documentation or information, such as a new service agreement, API tokens, or enrollment credentials. For example, some providers may already know your CIK, CCC, and passphrase, but others may not. Ask whether they will be offering to serve as a delegated entity and whether they will be offering the use of their API connections and filer API tokens. This is a business decision the provider will make, and it's possible that not all providers may want to offer those services. Consider whether you want to use a software provider for those services. I will now turn the presentation over to my colleague, Larita Finch, in the EDGAR Business Office.
Thank you so much, Dan. We will now discuss enrolling in EDGAR Next. Please note that our dashboard will go live on March 24th, 2025. Enrollment opens March 24th, 2025. Enrollment is required for all filers' CIKs created before March 24th, 2025. New filers' CIKs created after that date will be compliant with EDGAR Next through amended Form ID. Filers have 6 months to enroll prior to the compliance date, from March 24th, 2025 to September 12th, 2025, to continue filing without interruption. Compliance with EDGAR Next is required to file on EDGAR as of September 15th, 2025. Filers have 3 months to enroll afterwards, from September 15th, 2025 to December 19th, 2025, but they cannot file after September 15th until they are enrolled. Failure to enroll by December 19th will result in loss of EDGAR access unless an amended Form ID is submitted and accepted, meaning approved by SEC staff. We encourage filers to enroll by September 12th, 2025 to avoid interruption in the ability to file. As of September 15th, 2025, filers that have not enrolled or been granted access after submitting amended Form ID will be unable to file on EDGAR until they enroll. Enrollment ends on December 19th, 2025. During enrollment, a person authorized by each filer must enter the following: the filer's CIK, CCC, and passphrase, the name, email address, and business telephone number for each account administrator, company CIKs, there's an option to select single member company, and a quarter end annual confirmation date. Enrollment allows filers to transition to EDGAR Next in a simplified process that does not require notarization or presentation of a power of attorney. Filers enroll on the dashboard on the new EDGAR Filer Management website. Filers enroll by submitting the information requested in the Enroll section on the dashboard. Existing filers do not and should not attempt to enroll on Form ID. Only 2 account administrators can be authorized during enrollment. More account administrators can be added on the dashboard after enrollment. We encourage all filers to authorize 2 account administrators during enrollment, but individual and single member company filers are only required to authorize 1 account administrator. However, even single member company filers should consider having 2 account administrators to ensure someone is always available to address their account. What is not needed for enrollment? No power of attorney is needed to enroll. Filers authorize account administrators by providing their name and their information during enrollment and providing the filer's CIK, CCC, and passphrase. Filers are presumed to have authorized the person enrolling them by providing that person the filer's CIK, CCC, and passphrase. Notarization is not required. Filers that have successfully enrolled or have been granted access after submitting amended Form ID on the dashboard will immediately have the option to use APIs to make submissions and take other actions once required tokens are created. Submissions on the EDGAR Filing and EDGAR Online Forms websites will continue per the existing access process until EDGAR closes on September 12, 2025. We will now have a dashboard demonstration by Margie Marrero.
Hi, I'm Margie Marrero, Special Counsel with the EDGAR Business Office. We're now going to show you a short demo video on how to enroll in the EDGAR Filer Management dashboard. And then we will drill down into a few of the screenshots of the dashboard to explain the enrollment process in more detail. This will help you understand where preparation comes together and pays off.
In this video, we provide an overview of the dashboard on the EDGAR Filer Management website. The dashboard is where you can take actions for filers that have authorized you to do so. You must have individual account credentials from login.gov to access the dashboard. View our instructional video on obtaining individual account credentials for guidance. Log into the dashboard with login.gov individual account credentials to apply for EDGAR access or to enroll an existing filer in EDGAR Next. To take other actions on the dashboard, you must be authorized by the filer. To become authorized, a filer's account administrator must send you an invitation to have a role for the filer through the dashboard, and you must accept that invitation. You will receive the invitation both by email and on the dashboard, and you may accept either one. After you accept the invitation, you will be able to see the filer's dashboard view. Now we'll take a closer look at both the individual and filer dashboard views. If you are authorized for any EDGAR filer, after you log into EDGAR Filer Management, your individual dashboard view will display. Your individual contact details will display in the upper left-hand corner. You can edit your information at any time in the right-hand corner. You can see your notifications by selecting Show Notifications in the upper right-hand corner. Under My Accounts, you can view filers for which you are authorized. If you select My User API Token, you can view, copy and/or download your User API Token or create a new User API Token. Under Apply for EDGAR Access, you can apply for a new EDGAR account, or you can reapply for access for an existing account. And under Enroll in EDGAR Next, you can enroll existing filers in EDGAR Next during the enrollment period. To access the dashboard for a specific filer, select the filer from My Accounts. That filer's dashboard view will display. From here, you can see in what role or roles you are authorized to act for the filer. Authorized roles include Account Administrator, User, and Technical Administrator. You will also be able to take actions on the dashboard. Note that the actions you can take depend on your role for the filer. Different actions are available for an Account Administrator, User, and Technical Administrator. For additional guidance on the EDGAR Filer Management Dashboard, review the EDGAR Next resources on sec.gov. And for information on authorized roles and other EDGAR Next topics, please see the separate instructional videos on the SEC's YouTube channel.
Thank you. As you saw in the video, you need to sign in to EDGAR Filing Management Dashboard via login.gov to see your individual dashboard. Login.gov will not be required to see publicly disseminated EDGAR filings on sec.gov. After signing into the EDGAR Filer Management Dashboard via login.gov for the first time, you will see your individual dashboard homepage. Both the options to enroll and to apply for EDGAR access are immediately available starting March 24th, 2025. My Accounts and My User API Token are not available until you've been authorized for a CIK, which is enrolled in the dashboard. As you can see, multiple useful links are on the bottom of the page, including EDGAR filing websites and a link to the EDGAR Next main informational page. Once enrolled, you can file through the EDGAR filing website, and the APIs are optional, not mandatory. Remember, if you have a CIK and can currently file, you can use the manual enrollment with your CIK, CCC, and passphrase, and enter the information for your first two account administrators. No additional paperwork is required. No power of attorney is necessary for enrollment. All other power of attorney requirements regarding EDGAR filings are not changed. You will still be able to reset your passphrase and CCC during the enrollment period. From the Enroll in EDGAR Next tab, select Manual Enrollment to start the process. Enter the information for the initial two account administrators, including email address, business address, phone number, and optional employer information. This information is the same as what is required on Form ID Part 3, including the option to indicate single member company. Again, no power of attorney paperwork is necessary, and there are no attachments involved in the enrollment process. Individual CIKs are not required, but are encouraged to add a second account administrator. The email address must be the same as used for login.gov. You can update your individual profile on the dashboard at any time. During this process, you select your annual compliance date during the enrollment period, and afterwards, you have an option to confirm early if you would like to change the date. Please note, updating the filer address and company name information has not changed and will still be changed via retrieve edit data. There's an option to use bulk enrollment for use by using the formatted CSV spreadsheet available on the dashboard. Complete the downloadable CSV for up to 100 CIKs using the same information needed for manual enrollment. There's a handy 4-page PDF guide explaining the required fields and the optional field in the CSV to indicate single member company. Again, no attachments other than the CSV are involved in bulk enrollment. This can also be done via API. Again, the information for bulk enrollment is exactly the same as for manual enrollment, but the uploaded by spreadsheet instead of using the online interface. There's an option for indicating if a single member company, if appropriate, and individual CIKs can leave column 6, the question about single member companies blank. Please see the PDF guidance if you have any questions about what to enter in any of the fields. After enrollment, as an account administrator, you can select a CIK to manage and can immediately start inviting other account administrators, technical administrators, users, and you can manage delegations. An account administrator can also immediately make themselves or other account administrators technical administrators. There's no invitation or acceptance necessary for enrolled account administrators. The option to manage CCC, password, and delegations is also available. The API filer tokens are only available after 2 technical administrators are added to the filer account. Select My Accounts to see all of the filer names and CIKs you've been authorized. If you are associated with multiple CIKs, this page will show all of the CIKs you have permissions to file for, what roles you have, what your status is, such as active or pending. The dashboard will also show when you were invited and when the invitations were accepted. These dates will be the same if it was added by manual enrollment or from Form ID. You can review the annual confirmation dates. You can see and change delegation status and settings. Please see the filer test guidance for step-by-step instructions and guidance on how to use delegations. Please note the default view is 5 items per page, and you can change the items per page to 10, 25, or 100. After you have selected a specific filer CIK from My Account, in the Manage Individual view, you can review all the individuals with accepted and pending authorization, their roles, and contact information. At the top of the screen, there's a drop-down menu of all the CIKs you have access to, and the individuals associated with the CIK selected will appear below for the selected filer's CIK. As you see in the middle of the page, the primary EDGAR POC is the account administrator you wish the SEC staff to start with for staff inquiries. This can be changed to and by any account administrator at any time. The default is the first account administrator enrolled on the dashboard. Once enrolled, the EDGAR POC can only be updated via the dashboard. Currently, there are no other changes to retrieve edit data. In the future, some of the functionality may move to the dashboard. You can see, in addition to the individual roles, the contact information, phone, and email for all individuals with active roles. Pending invitations only show the email. The address information from the enrollment for the account administrators is only viewable by the SEC staff for any individual other than yourself. On the right-hand side of the page, you can take actions to add individuals or change individual roles, including removing yourself from a CIK. You can add an individual by clicking Add Individual on the right side of the page and enter the individual's email address, which will be associated with the login.gov for the individual you wish to invite to the dashboard for the filer CIK listed at the top of the screen. If the individual already has a profile on the dashboard, their name will appear in the pop-up box on the screen. The individuals do not have to be enrolled in the dashboard for the invite to be created. The individual does not have to have a login.gov account at the time of the invitation, but they must have login.gov account credentials to create the profile on the dashboard and to accept the invitation. Select the roles you wish the individual to have, and then click on Add Individual. Invitations must be accepted within 14 days or they expire. You can see delegations related to your filer CIK and which have delegated to you and delegations received. You can also manage the user groups created to help manage delegating filing authority if you have multiple authorized filer CIKs and multiple users. You can view delegations to, delegations received, and user groups individually or in a grid view. The delegating filer CIK name, the status of the delegation, the last update to the delegation, and actions on the delegation are available from this view. There's an option to accept or request delegations via bulk action. Please note, the CCC is updated upon enrollment. There are 2 options to update the CCC after enrollment. Select Manage CCC and Password to view the current CCC. All account admins, users, delegated account admins, and delegated users can see the CCC. The Generate a New CCC button is the same as the current functionality, but has been moved to the dashboard. There can be only one CCC at a time. Please remember to coordinate updates and check for updates prior to making a submission. A new option on the dashboard is you can manage CCC by creating a custom CCC. Again, the CCC will be visible to all individuals who have been authorized to file. Only one CCC will exist at a time and can be changed at any time by any account admin. Please plan accordingly. See the What is a CIK confirmation code at the top of the page for more information on what the 8-digit code requires. During the transition period, you can update your password so you can continue to file directly on the EDGAR filing website. The update password function will be moved to the dashboard during the transition period. Starting September 15th, 2025, password will no longer be used to access the filing websites. You must be enrolled and use either login.gov or APIs to file. Again, from the individual dashboard homepage, select My Accounts to see all of the filer names and CIKs you've been authorized to file for, or pending authorizations, and what roles you have for each CIK. You can create a user API token from this page. You can enroll and apply for EDGAR access from this page. And you can link to the EDGAR filing websites from this page. And from the filer's CIK dashboard view, you can review the filer account information, including CCC. Please note the filer name and address is still updated by retrieve edit data and cannot be edited on the dashboard at this point. You can perform annual confirmation from this page. You can manage individual CCC and delegations from this page, and manage the filer API tokens from this page. A Section 16 filer or a person they authorize, this is an example of individual filers and Section 16 filers. The person they authorize to be their account administrator needs to create a login.gov account if they do not already have one to view the dashboard. The Section 16 filer is not required to have an active role in managing the CIK's access or filings on the EDGAR. The first account administrator on enrollment form is designated the primary EDGAR POC. It can be switched at any time on the dashboard to another account administrator. The filer's account administrators can invite individuals such as paralegals to be users and can create user groups if they wish to. They can also invite additional account administrators and request or invite delegations. All account administrators are equal in their privileges and can see all of the delegations for the filer's CIK. The only part of this diagram which is required for individual filers is the account admin 1 is established. Everything else is optional. We highly recommend and encourage filers to have 2 or more account administrators to prevent filing delays and manage the EDGAR access. We'll have more detailed discussions about API tokens, individual filers enrollment, including Section 16 filers, in future webinars. This will include how an individual authorized to a filer CIK can use a delegated entity's filer token to take advantage of APIs. Please see the EDGAR Next webpage for more information about important dates, filer and API guidance. The Section 16 filer guidance is only 2.5 pages long and hopefully answers most of your questions. We have guidance on how to view and update your current EDGAR POC, how to update your access codes to help you prepare for enrollment, and this guidance includes how to update your CCC and passphrase if you do not have both. Also on our EDGAR Next page is prior webinar information, including links to the YouTube instructional videos, like the one we showed today, and the email address for any follow-up questions you have. And now we'll open it to questions. Then we're taking questions via the chat, right?
Yeah, that's right. So there's a variety of questions. Maybe we'll start at the top and go down. Okay, there's a question, please confirm a new Form ID is not required. Sorry, I lost the question. I think the question is it's not required for someone who enrolls. Yeah, once you enroll, you don't need to submit another Form ID. So transitioning from current EDGAR to EDGAR Next, you can either enroll in EDGAR Next through the dashboard, and if you're not able to enroll, then you submit a Form ID after March 24th. You submit a new Form ID. So after March 24th, the new Form ID will include data fields for account administrators. So that's how you'll establish your account administrators. So if you can't, you can add the new account administrators either through enrollment or through a new Form ID after March 24th, 2025.
Can we go back to slide 38? I just want to really point out some of the information we have. There's a lot of questions about what if I don't have my current passphrase? What if I don't know who the current POC is? We have guidance on this. It's a little broken out for each type of question, but if you can currently file or you have a filing agent who can file for you, all of the access codes you need for enrollment, you can reset or review and change. It is possible. You do not have to do a Form ID. You may have to reset some codes, but there's guidance on how to do that and how to see who your current POC is, how to update who your current POC is, how to change your CCC, how to change your passphrase. It's all in there.
Yeah, the guidance is very helpful. So, please take a look if you haven't. Hopefully it'll address a lot of your questions. So there's a question for an existing Section 16 reporting person. Does the SEC expect formal documentation authorizing a third party to serve as their account administrator, or is it not necessary? So for a third party serving as an account administrator, if that person is being added through enrollment, then the SEC does not need any extra documentation. But if the person is being added through Form ID after March 24th, 2025, then yes, we would need a power of attorney. So it's easier for the filers and for the SEC if enrollment is done through the dashboard. Submitting a Form ID does require extra documentation, and it does involve a review process that takes time. So, it is advantageous for you to enroll through the dashboard. There's a question, if a board member serves on several boards, each company's board must rely on one administrator of the filer's code. I'm not sure I understand the question, but that is something that ultimately the CIK owner, who is presumed the Section 16 individual, that's something they need to determine. They can determine that they want to have, one primary account administrator, maybe someone that they trust, and that person, maybe they'll tell them that you're the only account administrator and everyone else can be a user. Or maybe they'll say, I want one corporate secretary from each of my boards to be an account administrator. Or maybe they want to say, I'm going to delegate everything to a filing agent, and they're going to be the account administrator, and everyone needs to coordinate with that person. So I think there's a lot of flexibility. I think it ultimately depends on how the CIK owner wants to set things up. And that's something that needs to be coordinated. I think there's going to be a lot of discussions about what the CIK owner wants to do, what you think would be advantageous if you're a corporate secretary or if you're a filing agent. And I think you need to make your case why you would be an account administrator or why you would want to be delegated as a delegated entity. But ultimately, that's a decision that the CIK owner needs to make. You cannot just unilaterally make a decision, oh, I'm a filing agent, I'm going to be an account administrator. You need to talk to the CIK owner and confirm what they want to happen with their account. So that's a conversation that needs to happen between the relevant entities and the CIK owner. There's a question, if the filer does not know or know their passphrase, do all new codes need to apply for? There is an option to reset passphrase. There is an option to reset CCC, but you will need CIK, CCC, and passphrase in order to enroll. So if you don't know those credentials, you will have to reset them in order to enroll. If for whatever reason you cannot reset them, then you will have to submit Form ID. But you should be able to reset them. There's a question, could I confirm that we get to select our annual compliance date and it isn't automatically selected as of the date we enroll? So that's correct, you can select it. That is something we've established to give you flexibility to the extent that, let's say, you're the corporate compliance person for a series of companies and you want to stagger the annual compliance deadline. You don't want them all happening at year end because, let's say, hypothetically, you're already busy at the year end with different reports. And so let's say you want to stagger them. So some are end of the first quarter, some are end of the second quarter, some are end of the third quarter. you can go ahead and do that when you enroll. And later on, if you want to change those dates, you say, you know, I made a mistake. I don't like having them at the end of the year. I do want to move them forward. You can go ahead and confirm early. And when you go ahead and confirm early, you can shift your compliance date. The deadline for annual confirmation is always 1 year from the last one. So you can go ahead and do your annual confirmation early, and that'll shift your deadline to be a year from the end of the quarter in which you comply, in which you confirm. So you can always change them. There's a question. Many individuals set up EDGAR codes years ago and only have access to their CIK and CCC. The email associated with their account is from a former employee, and that individual no longer has access to the email address as well as the password and the passphrase. What is the best way to handle such a situation? I believe if you have the CIK and CCC, you can go into retrieve edit data and change the email address associated with the account.
I believe that's right. So say you're a filing agent and you're trying to make sure that your client's code or your client's email is, you know, up to date and you don't have the passphrase. If you have their permissions, you can log in like you would file. You can go to retrieve edit data. You can check who the point of contact is. You can update that, and you can assist them with updating their passcodes that you need. So if you need that passphrase, go check what the email is, and you can reset it. And that's part of the guidance we have on the website. Dan, did you see the one a few up about tokens? In the self-service model, will users authorized by a Filer A delegating entity be able to utilize APIs and Filer A API token provided by Filer B delegated entity to file on behalf of a Filer A using their own individual login credentials on the Filer B platform? Or must Filer B account administrator added to the Filer A users as Filer B users? I think it'd be helpful just generally discussing users and tokens.
Yeah, so if I understand correctly, the question is, will users of a filer be able to use APIs and a Filer API token from the filing agent or the delegated entity if those users of the filer are not listed as users for the filing agent? Yeah, that's right. As long as there's a delegated relationship, so let's say, you know, there's an issuer and they're using a filing agent and the filing agent is a delegated entity, that will enable the issuer's users and account administrators to use the filing agent's Filer API token. So the delegation is sufficient. They don't need to be separately listed as users for the filing agent. The delegation is enough. That'll do the trick.
Going down, somebody is asking if they're required to use APIs. No, the APIs are optional. Starting in September, you will have to use the login.gov to file by the websites if you want to continue doing it like you normally do. During the transition period, you can still file directly with the websites, but starting September 15th, 2025, you will have to use login.gov to get to the dashboard, to get to the filing website. But you do not have to use the APIs if you don't want to.
Now, there's a question, will you upload a video explaining how the administrator's account are created in the first place? So I think they're asking how an account administrator's account is created. So an account administrator is just an individual who's acting as an account administrator. So I guess there's two parts. One is the person needs to create their login.gov account by going to login.gov. It's a pretty easy process. You just go to the website, follow the instructions. And then to become an account administrator, you need to be either added through the enrollment process where the filer enrolls and you're listed as one of the account administrators in terms of your email address being listed as an account administrator, or else two, the filer submits a form ID after March 24th, 25 and lists you as an account administrator on that form ID. Those are the two basic ways. And then after the filer has established their account administrators, those account administrators can in turn add additional account administrators. So I think those are the ways in which you could be authorized as an account administrator for a filer. So the question for you, could you please share a link to the SEC's YouTube channel? Yeah, could someone post that in the chat? It's also on the, oh, great.
Post the base EDGAR Next page too.
Yeah, the EDGAR Next page, it has several resources. It has links to the YouTube channel. It has links to written guidance. It has links to, you know, the EDGAR Next transition process. It has a bunch of information there that hopefully is helpful. This question, can you please go over what needs to be done when a filer uses third-party software to file, such as Workiva? You know, we did have a slide on that. Hopefully that addressed your question. But essentially, you need to talk to the software provider. I think the software provider will have options in terms of how they comply with EDGAR Next and in terms of what functions they want to make available. So my understanding is the different software providers are speaking with the clients and they're putting out webinars to explain, you know, what tokens they will expect and what services they'll provide. So definitely, you know, reach out to your software provider. Because just to further explain, some of them will require you to provide your own filer API token and user token, and some of them may allow you to use their filer API token. So I think there's, you know, they have some business choices they can make and, you know, their business models. And so we want the rule to be flexible enough to accommodate, you know, the different preferences that the industry has. So you definitely coordinate with your software provider. There's a question, if there are multiple CIKs for entity, can we request delegation access to the entity where we then would get delegation for all CIKs? I mean, you can do bulk delegations, or you could also do multiple delegations. Part of the purpose of the APIs are to allow actions to be taken on a machine-to-machine basis where you can send hundreds or thousands of requests in a second. So the APIs should allow, you know, sort of bulk or mass actions to take place very rapidly. So I think that could be helpful in the context of, you know, investment companies or other entities where you may have hundreds of related entities. You should be able to take hundreds of actions in like a second. So the API should allow, you know, a lot of efficiency. Question says, can a search function be added for my accounts and manage individuals by name or CIK? I believe we have that, don't we, Margie?
There's the filter options. It's not search, it's filter, but it's essentially the same thing.
Yeah, so just to clarify, so let's say you are an account administrator for 200 CIKs and they're all listed. I'm not sure what the default order is, but let's say it's alphabetically. You should be able to search or filter them for your particular client, and then that should pop up. So I think that addresses that question.
I was just going to say there are currently 4 videos on our website to help you if you want to watch things over and over again. One is how to obtain individual account credentials. One is the video we showed on the dashboard. One's an overview of the account administrator role. One is just simply how to apply for access. And then one is coming on enrolling in EDGAR that goes through the process again so that you can watch a video that's just specifically on that.
There's a question, will a login be required if we utilize a third-party vendor for SEC submissions? I assume that is referring to, do I need login.gov credentials? And I think that really depends on the nature of the filing. If it's sort of self-service or full service. So if the vendor, if M2, an example refers to M2, if M2 does the filings on your behalf, then the M2 users could have their own individual account credentials. They could use their own tokens. And assuming you're the client, you could just say, go ahead and make the filing M2, and M2 can do it for you. So you wouldn't necessarily need your own credentials, other than initially enrolling your account in EDGAR Next and making sure that M2 has been delegated or added as someone who can make filings on your behalf. But if M2 has your CIK, CCC, and passphrase, and you authorize them to enroll you, they could go ahead and enroll your account for you, and then they could, you know, add one of their staff as your account administrator. They could do annual confirmations for you. They could, you know, add their staff as users, or they could delegate to themselves. But I think it depends on the degree to which you're comfortable, you know, delegating all of that to M2 and saying, M2, just do everything for me. If you're not comfortable with that, then, you know, you can create your own login.gov account credentials, you can add yourself as an account administrator, and you can add M2, one of their employees as a user, or you could add one of their employees as an account administrator. So it really, I think it depends on the degree to which you want to be involved in managing your account, the degree to which you feel comfortable outsourcing that, the degree to which, you have a relationship with the vendor. And, I don't know if the vendor your current vendor will offer those services, or if they'll, require certain documentation. So anyway, these are decisions that you need to make after talking to your vendor. But I think there's options available to you if you don't want to be involved. I think that's possible. There's a question, can the account admin add an authorized entity as opposed to just authorized individuals? If yes, is it only available to those filers making use of APIs? So you can delegate to an entity. You can delegate to a CIK. So let's say you want to delegate to a filing agent or a law firm or a broker-dealer. You don't know which person you want to delegate to. You just know the entity. That's fine. You can delegate to the entity. And at that point, the entity can decide on its own which of its users and which of its account administrators can file for you. So you're sort of deferring to the entity to determine who will make filings on your behalf. So that is an option. So yes, you can do that. And that's not limited to APIs. You can just delegate to an entity even if you're not using APIs, or even if they're not using APIs.
Question about generate a new CCC. Yes, once enrolled, you can generate a new CCC, just like now where you click a button and the system creates it for you, or there's a new option using the same 8-digit code requirements that you can create your own, and the guidance is on the page on what the 8-digit code requirements are.
Yeah, but just to clarify, I'm not sure if asking about generating a new CCC in the context of enrollment, but if you enroll, my understanding is your CCC is automatically regenerated. So that's something that you need to be careful of in the context of, you may have multiple people filing on your behalf, multiple filing agents, let's say, and if one of them enrolls you, I believe your CCC will be reset. So you need to let the other people know. I think there's a question if this will be posted on YouTube. I believe it will be posted on the EDGAR Next page. I'm not sure if we post on YouTube specifically, but I believe we are planning to post this webinar. There's a question, if the filer wants a filer agent to file on their behalf, the agent will log into the current EDGAR system and use transmit live data option. What will happen post September 25? Will current EDGAR exist? So yes, after September 2025, the current EDGAR filing websites will still exist, except the main difference is that there's just going to be an extra login process for those filing websites. We need to log in through login.gov first before you make the filings. But otherwise, those filing websites will be largely unchanged. It's just an additional login process for security identification purposes will exist with regards to those websites, the filing websites. Oh yeah, so there's another question about CCC getting updated after enrollment. And we just want to emphasize it is automatic when you enroll. So if you do enroll, the CCC's reset, you should let people know, because otherwise they won't be able to file. If as part of the enrollment, you add them as account admins, users, or delegated entities, then they can see the CCC on the dashboard by themselves, and they can also use APIs to pull down the CCC from the dashboard. But in order for that to happen, they need to be added. So if you have someone that you want to file on your behalf, ideally you would add them as a user, as an account admin, or as a delegated entity, so that they can pull down the CCC by themselves. There's a question if filers have to set up their accounts themselves and then designate an admin. So I think we addressed this. I mean, you can do it yourself, or you can authorize your filing agent or vendor to do it for you if you trust them. You can say, go ahead and enroll me, and add yourself as an account admin, or add XYZ as an account admin, and they can enroll you. So you have that option. There's a question, does each administrator log in via their login.gov account or directly through EDGAR Next? So It's essentially the same. So EDGAR Next is a reference to the revised version of EDGAR that is being implemented. But that, starting in March, you will need to log in through login.gov to access the filer management website. And starting in September, you'll need to log in through login.gov to access the EDGAR filing and EDGAR online forms websites. So EDGAR will start to require login.gov in March and will require it in September for all external websites, for all 3 websites. There's a question, will there be a database that may be used to check if a CIK has been enrolled in EDGAR Next? I believe, yeah, this is a common question we're getting. It's a good question. I believe there is a way to check. I think there's a couple ways to check. I think the simplest is to try to enroll the CIK, and if it's already enrolled, you'll get a notification. But I think we're also considering this question to see if there's something we can do to address this in a more simplistic way or a more user-friendly way. So yeah, thank you for raising that. Once we enroll live, are we obligated to file an EDGAR Next prior to our final adoption of EDGAR Next? No. So just to clarify, regardless of when you enroll, you can still continue filing through the current process. So there's no downside to enrolling. So enrollment begins in March, but September is when the filing websites will require login.gov credentials. So you can enroll in March, set up your account administrator, set up your users, but you can keep on filing using CIK and password and CCC up until September. So we encourage you to enroll early. We encourage you to set up your accounts. We encourage you to do, to test the APIs. We encourage you to, test the process. Let us know what enhancements you want to see. Let us know what feedback you have. But please, there's no downside to enrolling early. There's only advantages for you and for the commission. So please enroll early, and there's no downside.
The upside of enrollment early, if you set up your permissions and your delegations, you get access to the APIs.
Asked previously, but with additional query, once a filing agent is delegated, will all of their users be able to submit filings on behalf of the filer? So the answer to that is generally yes, although the filing agent, if they want to, they can restrict that to a subset. So let's say their client says, in order for someone to file for me, they need to pass a drug test, or they need to have worked for more than 5 years as a filing agent, or they need XYZ. They need to be in my same time zone, and I'm in Japan. So then the filing agent can say, okay, for this particular client, we're going to restrict it to just these 12 employees. So they can set up a user group for that particular client if they want. The next part, once filing agent receives permission and delegates to their own staff members, will the filing agent need to do that separately for each CIK, or can the filing agent automatically authorize all staff for all CIKs that the filing agent is delegated to file for? So I think this is asking about user groups. So yeah, user groups, you can create a subset of your users, and you can assign them to multiple CIKs. So let's say you have a group of specialized staff that work on Form D filings or Section 16 filings or whatever it is, and you want them to work for all clients who fall into that subset. You can create a user group for the group of filings or group of clients, and you can assign them just to those clients. But you should be able to just click and drag. It should be pretty straightforward. Or if you want, you can use APIs. And the APIs, like I said, you can send thousands of actions in just a second or so. So you should be able to program the API to add or remove delegated users to set that up however you want. Hopefully that addresses your question.
The Q&A posting is a little, I don't know, the flow is a little odd. So I posted an answer to a specific question about somebody believing that they couldn't update the EDGAR POC if they didn't have the password. I'm pretty sure that you can, and posted a response. So if you're a filing agent, you can sign in with your CIK and CCC, and then go to the retrieve edit data and enter the CIK, the filing agent would sign in with their CIK and password, and then you would go to retrieve edit data and enter the CIK and CCC of the client you're trying to help, and then go to retrieve filer information. And you should be able to view and update the EDGAR POC email address.
That's right. The question is asking, will any of the recordings of the 3 sessions be available on SEC's YouTube channel? I'm looking on there now, and I don't see either of the previous 2 sessions on there. Yeah, I don't know if we'll add them to YouTube specifically, but I believe they have been added, or at least one has been added to the EDGAR Next page. The EDGAR Next page is actually the prime repository for EDGAR Next information. So there is a link in this presentation. If you just Google EDGAR Next SEC, it'll pop up. The page with all these resources. I think that's where the links will be for the webinars and for other information.
It doesn't appear that the last webinar has been posted yet. It should be coming soon.
Okay, thanks. So question, when a user is invited by the account administrator, how does the user find information on obtaining login.gov credentials? That's a good question. I believe if you go to any of the EDGAR websites, like EDGAR Filing, EDGAR Online Forms, or EDGAR Filer Management, I believe there will be information directly from those websites as of March. I don't know if you'd get, and I think that's when you'd be invited. So you can't get invited now. So I believe that's the easiest way to do it. Yeah, I don't think the invitation itself tells you how to get credentials, does it, Margie?
I think if you follow the links, it'll help you, guide you through the process. Kind of automatically takes you to login.gov, and then we'll take you into the dashboard. So if you already know what email address you want to use for it, you can create your login.gov account anytime to streamline that process. So you can hit the ground running in March, and it should take you straight through. There's another question about, can one account administrator create user tokens for other users? We've gotten this question in every webinar, and the answer is no. I don't know if you want to expand on that, Dan.
Yeah, so the user token is similar to the individual account credential. It's intended to track and identify a particular person. So we don't want someone to be able to create tokens for someone else or credentials for someone else where they have control over it. The idea is it's unique to that person, and then only that person can create it. If you want someone else to file for you, then that other person should be using their own user token. So if you want to delegate to a filing agent, so the filing agent files on your behalf, then the filing agent should be using their own user API token.
I believe there's a question about updating passwords annually when we go to the dashboard. The password's only going to be useful for the enrollment. Starting in September, you're no longer going to need a password. You're going to need login credentials that will replace the password.
Yes, that's right. Okay, some questions. Is there a new Form ID for us to review? So yes, there is. So the adopting release has the new Form ID at the end in the appendix. You can see all the new questions. You can see all the new data fields. The adopting release is actually a great resource that walks through all the changes in the most detail. A lot of the slides you saw today are taken from the adopting release. And it has a table of contents at the beginning. It kind of outlines all the different sections. So it's a little bit imposing. It's like 200 pages, but you can just walk through the sections that are relevant for you. And the adopting release is linked on the EDGAR Next page. So, please take a look if you have a chance. Another question is, will the amended Form ID need to be submitted on behalf of each filer or by the company? The amended Form ID is needed by the CIK owner. So typically it's the company unless the CIK owner is an individual. So in some cases, the CIK owner is an individual, like an officer or director. But the CIK, there's one Form ID per CIK, basically. And that's only if you cannot enroll. If you can enroll, you don't need to submit another Form ID. Another question, are there instructions for resetting the passphrase and passwords for filers if they cannot remember them? And yes, there are instructions. Please go to the EDGAR Next page. The instructions are there. Hopefully it should resolve any questions you have. And then it says, for Section 16 filers, is there one Form ID required for each company? I mean, Form ID is only required for the CIK. So if the Section 16 filer cannot enroll, then the Section 16 filer will need to submit a Form ID, but they should be able to enroll. They should be able to just get their credentials, and if they can't get them, they should be able to reset them. So there shouldn't be any need for them to submit a Form ID, assuming they can enroll. There's a question, do we need to coordinate with other companies with a filer with filings from multiple companies? Yes, you should. Definitely coordinate with other companies. So if you have a Section 16 officer who sits on multiple boards, you should coordinate with the other companies and with the filer, the Section 16 filer themselves, to just confirm You know, who will be the account administrator, who will be doing enrollment, who will be users, who will be delegate entities, you know, when enrollment will occur, when the CCC will change, you know, all of that stuff should be discussed in advance. So, you know, please talk, communicate, and make sure everyone's on the same page. There's a question, once insiders are enrolled, can filings be immediately for them? Yeah, I mean, filings can be, you know, as we mentioned, filings will continue to take place with CIK and CCC and passwords up through September. So enrollment does not affect how filings work. The only impact would be enrollment is when you can start using APIs. So if you enroll in March, you can start using APIs in March. But, you know, enrollment otherwise has no impact on when you can make filings with CIK, CCC, and password. That will just keep on continuing as normal until September.
There's a question about current EDGAR CCC versus EDGAR Next CCC during the enrollment period. Once you've enrolled, your CCC will be moved to the dashboard and all updates will be done there. You will not be able to do it the current method. But it is one CCC. It is either available as it is now, and once enrolled, it moves to the dashboard. And there's also a question about formal documentation for third parties. If you're using manual enrollment, you do not have to submit separate documentation to us. If you're using Form ID, you do. But that's only for the account administrators if they're not directly related, as the form specifically lays out. The Form ID in the adopting release really tells you all you need to know. But for manual enrollment, all you have to have is those passcodes, the access codes, and you don't have to do formal documentation.
There's a question, after March 24th, do you need a Form ID to enroll? So those are two separate paths. You can enroll or you can submit a Form ID. So if you enroll, you don't need to submit a Form ID. If you cannot enroll, then you submit a Form ID. So you can do one or the other. You don't have to do both. There's a question, did you say that you have reset the CCC when enrolling an insider? So yes, when enrollment occurs, the CCC will be automatically reset as a security precaution. So, you know, please be careful about enrollment. If the person works with multiple vendors or multiple boards or multiple companies, once the person enrolls, their CCC will change. The new CCC can be shared with people, but it's important to communicate with people before you enroll, just to make sure you're not enrolling before a filing deadline for another company so that people are not taken off guard. There's a question, does this guidance also apply to filing FINRA ADVs? So this is just for EDGAR. This doesn't affect FINRA filings. So you know, unfortunately, we haven't gone through all these questions, but I do think this is time. So unless others indicate otherwise, I think we should stop at this point. I hope this was helpful. You know, I think we tried to answer the questions. We appreciate all the questions you raised. We will take a look at them, and we are planning to, you know, upload this webinar. We're also planning to upload or draft FAQs. So to the extent that your questions weren't answered today, you know, we will try to get back to you. All right, thanks everybody. It was good to see you, and we will talk to you again soon.
Thank you.